Welcome to the Forever in Their Hearts podcast with Dale Martin Jr., brought to you by Martin Brothers, providing funerals designed and customized to be as special as your loved one lost. Now, here's your host.
Well, yes, this is your host, Erik Reynolds, and I'm here today with Valerie Martell, Director of Operations for Martin Brothers Funeral Services, and today Valerie will be discussing how to help teens deal with death. Now, before Valerie joins us, just a reminder that if you have questions or require assistance, you can reach Martin Brothers Funeral Services in Vancouver at 778-330-7799. Again, that's 778-330-7799. Now, Valerie, as always, it's great to be talking with you again today.
Nice to talk to you, Erik.
Now, Valerie, of course, unfortunately, sometimes teens do encounter death outside the family. It could be a school friend, the parent of a friend, or a celebrity that your teen admires. This can be tough on your teen, and it's important to know how to handle it. So, Valerie, let me start by asking this question. How do I start talking to my teen about death when I didn't plan to do so?
You know, Erik, this can be such a tough thing because as a parent, and I'm a parent myself, and I remember when my kids were in their teens, and, you know, teens are challenging to begin with, and, you know, when you don't plan to talk about death, so you don't have someone in the family who's sick or anything like that, and then, you know, when it happens that somebody that your teen knows or is connected with dies, it can be really tough on parents. Certainly it's tough on your teen, but it's also tough on you as a parent. One thing I suggest to parents is, you know, be available for questions. Teens are not always forthcoming. They have a lot of feelings going on anyway, and their feelings sometimes stay inside, and that can manifest itself in many ways. But, you know, really be there for your teen to answer any questions your teen might have, because often if it's a teen's first experience with death, they may not have even had a pet die in their life, and suddenly they have a school friend that dies. They might have questions. They might not know, you know, even something as simple as what do I say? How do I approach, you know, the really close friends? How do I approach the parents? So be available, be there to answer questions. You might not always have the best answer. You might not always have the answer on the tip of your tongue, but you know what? You can say to your teen, well, here's how I'm feeling about this, and here's my sense of it, and let's talk about this. Let's be together on this. So that's really important. Another thing, too, with your teen is to respect their silence. Teens don't always have the ability to bring up the best words for things. They, you know, sometimes teens can, for all intents and purposes, block everything out, you know, people out by just being silent. But respect that silence to some extent as long as you are available. And it's not outrageous to ask your teen how they're feeling. You know, even if the teen is not saying much of anything, and, you know, that's your child. You have the right and you have the ability to just ask them how they're feeling, and you know, respect what they say. Teens can say, you know, I'm kind of sad, or, you know, never mind, or you know, they can have all sorts of different feelings going on, and it's important that you just straight out ask them how they're feeling, because the last thing you want to do is to have your teen just bottle it up inside and not have any outlet for their sadness or, you know, their grief or how they're feeling. Your teen might be angry and it might be feeling, oh my goodness, you know, I'm mad. My best friend died and I'm mad. And they're thinking that's not right. Well, you know what? That is right. We do feel some anger when somebody dies. It's not fair that person's gone from our life. So just be there, be respectful to them, and ask them how they're feeling.
Now, Valerie, what effects can death outside the family have on my teen?
Well, you know, some things that, you know, some effects that it might have on your teen might withdraw. You know, they might sort of, you know, kind of turn into themselves and you know, not be a part of things because they're afraid to show their emotions, perhaps. Unfortunately, sometimes when a teen encounters death, they start really thinking about their own mortality, and that's something that it's not fair that a child of that age has to think about that. But most teens think they're invincible, and they don't think about death. Thank goodness, they don't normally have to. But it could have the effect that your teen's thinking like, what would happen if I died? What would happen if somebody close to me died? So it can scare them. It can, certainly, make them afraid. Other effects, in the worst case scenario, sometimes teens think that, death is a way out of things, which is an unfortunate thing to happen. But there can be all kinds of effects. The one thing though is to keep in mind that teens are quite resilient. For a time, it can be tough on a teen to be part of a grieving process, to have someone in their life pass, whether it's a friend, a parent of a friend, or even a celebrity that they've, really come to like and they feel it's part of their lives. So, it can be tough on them, but the one thing that it can do is get them through that first experience with death. And then, after that, they kind of have that experience under their belt, and they know what it feels like. And grieving is a natural process. So, certainly it can have negative effects on your teen, but it certainly can be, a growth experience in the long run.
Now, here's a question I'm sure myself and other parents with teens may have, is should I let my teen miss school, or be alone, hang out with friends? And if so, how long should I expect this to last?
To some extent, teens are a pack animal. They like to be with their peers. And for instance, if, someone from their school dies, a friend or whatever, even an acquaintance, some teens will want to not go there. They might want to be at home and they might want to be alone. And again, like I said before, that's when you really need to be available to your teen. It is important that just like we would miss work if somebody in our lives died, it's okay to miss school maybe a little bit, a day, a couple of days to collect themselves, be around family, have that support of their parents, or a parent or extended family. That's okay. But to miss school for a great period of time is probably not a good idea, because what has to happen is your teen has to get back into the routine of normal life. It can be hard, yes. It can be sad, yes. But it's important that routines are still kept. So it's a good idea to allow them to have some time, but not to have an extended amount of time. It's okay for your teen to be alone somewhat, but just so your teen knows that you are always available to them. You may find that your child wants to, have some time alone in their room. And teens don't always like to cry around their parents. It can seem as though, they're being, for boys, they're, being wimpy, or, that they're, girls are just overly emotional, for instance. And it's not that way. Crying is quite fine, but sometimes they want to cry alone, which is great. That's okay, as long as you are available for them. And like I say, teens are sort of a pack animal. They like to be around their friends. And that is a social network of support that's really important to teens. So yeah, that's fine, absolutely. If a teen wants to be with their friends, again, I can't say it enough that it's important that they know you're always available. But sometimes teens need to just talk out these things with their peers. And, whether it's a celebrity who has died and they want to have a little trip to the memorial, to these spontaneous memorials that come up where people lay flowers and things like that, or even if it's a friend that unfortunately was killed in an accident or something to that effect, that idea of a spontaneous memorial, a place where kids bring notes and pictures and candles and flowers and all of that stuff, can be really important. And that it's a social support and an outward manifestation of their grief, and that's quite all right. How long should you expect it to last? Well, that's really individual. Some teens will be quite resilient and have a moment of sadness and then move along. And some teens, it'll last a little longer. And you can't really put a time limit to it. It's like our own grief as adults. Sometimes there will be deaths that hit us a little harder than others, and it does take some time. But for the most part, grief is functional, so it does move people forward. So as far as how long, as long as your teen is doing okay, and you're the parent, and so you kind of know your teen best. And if the teen is feeling sad, but still functioning, still getting up in the morning-ish, as far as teens get up, showering and dressing and doing those things that teens normally do, and not simply withdrawing and being, overly depressed about things, you can expect it to last, however long your teen really needs to be in that mode. But, as a parent, just trust your instincts. Trust that you know best in that.
Now, Valerie, if the death is a school friend, should I let my teen attend the funeral?
Absolutely. People ask me this all the time as a funeral professional. They'll say to me, should I bring the kids? Should I bring my teen? Will they be afraid? Well, a lot of that fear of attending a funeral is something that adults sort of put on kids. Certainly, in my experience, little ones, even smaller than teens, don't really have that fear of going to a funeral because they don't know what it's all about. Teens can have a little bit of a fear because they've seen, most often, they've seen movies, they've seen shows and things like that, and it can be a little bit daunting. But really important that, yes, you do let your teen attend the funeral. Just like adults, they need that place, they need that spot, they need that time to outwardly express their grief. And sometimes the only place that feels right is at a funeral. It's okay to cry at a funeral because people do cry at funerals. So your teen might be holding things inside and might need that release of the funeral. They need that social support and to be a social support to other people. It can make a teen feel really important, and they are important, when they do greet the parents of their friend who has died. And they do, they are part of things. It's really important. But the one thing I would suggest is go along with your teen. If possible, don't have them go to the funeral alone, even if it's something as simple as gathering up your teen's friends and driving them all to the funeral and picking them up after the funeral. Do let them go, but again, be that support to them. If it's as much as holding their hand through the funeral and actually going with them, that's great. If that's just not possible due to, space restrictions at the funeral or a private funeral or anything like that, at least be the one to drive them there or see them to that point and pick them up afterwards. That's really important. But absolutely, they should attend the funeral.
Now, Valerie, we've talked about, the teen missing school, being alone, hanging out with friends, maybe attending the vigil, the memorial, and the funeral. But if after all that, my teen continues to be sad, who can I turn to for more help?
Well, certainly one of the most important places is right at your fingertips. If your teen continues to be sad, you can certainly turn to their school. Often if there is a death in the school community, the school itself will bring in extra counselors, extra help for the time. And even if it's a month later, even if it's a while later, you can always approach the school and say, I think my teen's having a bit of a tough time with this death that has taken place. Is there someone who can help? And schools will very good at that. They will bring in somebody, or they may have somebody on staff that can assist your teen. And sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody who's not in the family. Your teen might. Teens are notorious. I know I had a couple of them in the past, and they're grown up now. But they're notorious for sometimes not wanting to discuss certain things with parents, but somebody outside the family they may be more apt to discuss things with. And so school, number one, you can certainly contact your school. Your doctor can assist with, some mental health resources. Not that grieving is a mental health issue, but it's connected. And if grieving goes on for what you feel is longer than what's functional or what we say normal, for instance, you can turn to your doctor for some assistance and ask them what you should do as far as taking your teen somewhere. And of course, your funeral home. As a funeral home, we always have resources at our fingertips. I do a lot of reading in this area, and I know there are books out there and there are articles that I can give you as a parent to assist with dealing with your teen, and I can point you in the right direction for some assistance for your teen. So there is help out there, and it's available, and don't hesitate. If you think your teen is having trouble with the experience of death, with that first experience of death, or subsequent ones, don't worry. There are some resources out there, and again, I can't say it enough. It's really important that you as a parent are on top of things.
Now, Valerie, before we finish up the podcast today, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, yeah, I do, Erik. As a parent, I just want to reiterate some of the most important things. Your presence is number one. Your ability to just be there, and whether it's to use your words or to use your presence or just simply your touch. Give your teen a hug. They're not always huggable, but give them a hug, and they'll know you're there. So really important for that. And as a parent, trust your instincts. It's never easy when you see your teen going through a time that is tough on them, no matter if it's a death or any other tough times on your teen. That's not easy, but trust that you'll know what to do, that as a parent, because you know your teen best, that you will be fully capable of assisting your teen. And just letting your teen know that death is a tough thing, but it's a normal thing. It does happen, and that can be a tough conversation, but it's certainly important that your teen does know that.
Well, Valerie, once again, I've enjoyed talking to you today and about how to handle speaking with teens about death. Now, in our next episode, for our listeners, we're going to be discussing how to help aging parents when it seems all their friends are dying. Again, for our listeners, if you can think of someone who might benefit from what we've covered here today, forward this podcast to them, and they'll thank you for it. And if you have questions or require assistance, you can reach Martin Brothers Funeral Services in Vancouver at 778-330-7799. Again, that's 778-330-7799. Or visit their fabulous website, very informative website, at www.mbfunerals.com. Again, that's www.mbfunerals.com. Well, Valerie, as always, for myself, for the listeners, thanks so much for the conversation today.
Thanks, Erik. Nice talking with you.
You've been listening to the Forever in Their Hearts podcast with Dale Martin Jr. from Martin Brothers Funeral Services. Our 4 generations of service in the funeral profession have equipped us with a legacy of understanding. In your hour of need, Martin Brothers is there. Call Martin Brothers in Vancouver today at 778-330-7799 and visit them online at www.mbfunerals.com.